coached college for 12 years. I was tough. I was mean. You're doing it my way or you're not doing it. And that, looking back now, I don't like saying this, but it's true. I regret how I acted as a coach most of the time. And a lot of it was I was hurt that we weren't winning. I was hurt that my philosophies weren't right. I was hurt and I was projecting, right? Um, which you don't learn until you go to therapy. Every man should go to therapy, FYI. I
Yeah.
know you probably weren't expecting to hear that from the lacrosse writer, but it's true.
Welcome to the Flow State Yoga for Athletes podcast. I'm your host, Dan Rosenak, lifelong student athlete, here to share with you interesting discussions featuring athletes and coaches exploring health and human performance, yoga, and flow state awareness. I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. Thank you and enjoy the journey. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle Devitte. Kyle is the editor and lead writer for the New England Lacrosse Journal. Kyle and I share the same alma mater, Clark University. Kyle is a lacrosse journalist, a coach, currently coaching at Hopkinton, New Hampshire High School. And Kyle's got an awesome resume. We'll talk more about his history in the game of lacrosse and as he pioneers the field of lacrosse journalism. So thank you again for joining us, and welcome to the show, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's fun. It's fun to connect with Clark alums that still remember lacrosse. There's not so many of us. There's just a few, and we all know each other, so that's kind of cool. That's the cool thing about it.
One of the things I think that connected us kind of probably subconsciously was we both share just such a big passion for the sport. Like as a youngster, what drew you to lacrosse? What was your hook?
So what's funny is I didn't play till much later. I didn't play until I was like 14, and I played box. So they had this little roller rink outside, across the street from Everett Arena in Concord, New Hampshire. It's the first time I played lacrosse. And then, from there, I was like, oh, this is great. But there was like, it's like a no contact league, but it was just a lot of like learning how to do everything. Looking back, it's very similar to sixes, except we use small nets. And I played with like all my best friends. And then coincidentally, the next year, they brought it into John Stark, which is where I was going at the time. And, from the jump, just played. I was a captain for 2 years with all my best friends played. Like we were a whole gang of dudes learning how to play. We were tough. I actually played defense starting. And we ran a backer zone. I don't know if you should ever run a backer zone as your first defense. But that's what we ran. And I was the backer. So they used a pole as the backer. I would sit on the crease. I would cover a guy, and then I would just slide to everything. It worked. Like when we played less skilled teams, it worked. But when we played good teams, it was tough. Then we had to switch to man and stuff. But I played basketball growing up, basketball and soccer. I didn't have a high skill level, but I had motor, and I had like intensity and passion, and like all my coach. I was one of those kids that like, you hated when you played against me, even in the like at recess after school, you hated me. All my friends were like, can you just turn it down? I was like, no, I can't. Because the other thing too is like, to give background, I'm 5'7". I'm like probably 180 something right now, probably 182, a little lower this week. And I've been this height since 5th grade. So I was a bad dude until 8th grade. And then everyone else is like this. And I'm like, all my friends are taller than me. But I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to go harder. And I would do that. I would play basketball against dudes that were like 6'6", and I would just hit them. No one likes being hit. So it was fun. Soccer was fun. I had a lot of yellow cards, a couple red cards. But it was that background prepared me for lacrosse because the skill comes with reps, right? And that's what I learned. Like if you get enough reps in anything, you can excel. And that's, eventually what I did because I became an attack, like playing box every summer. That happened every summer. So I learned how to play modified box sixes, play with my brother who's 7.5 years younger than me and also 6'2". So I would just lob him balls and we would just play two man. And I didn't even know I was playing two man. I'm just playing, right? And, was lucky enough to eventually get to Clark after doing a PG year at Tilton Prep and then I went to St. Mike's first for 3 semesters and I got injured and then kind of was like, oh my God. My best friend was at WPI. He's like, there's 10 colleges here. Do you want to go to college in Worcester? I was like, I don't think I do, but maybe I have to. And then I looked around and that was the place, Clark was where I wanted to go.
What drew you to Clark?
So you think I was only good at a couple things academic, right? The first thing was getting on stuff. And the second thing was writing. I had skill for that. Like that, I wanted to do that for a long time, but I didn't see how I could make money in it. I ended up being an English major. And the curriculum at Clark is intense. Like it is no joke. Everyone made fun of me because no one ever saw me. And they're like, oh, we don't see you. You don't go here. And I was like, no, I'm in the tiny house in the back for every class. I'm never going to see you guys. I get it. It's funny. I'm literally reading hundreds of pages a day, 20-page papers almost every night. And they were like, yeah, okay, Kyle. And then finals would come and I'd have to do like a capstone. And it's like, where'd Kyle go? And I'd like be locked in a room with like a pot of coffee and like, that's it. And I'd just be doing stuff. I'd just be writing, reading, all that stuff. So it was very hard. But I liked that. I liked the challenge of it. It made me so much better, made me fast, which is how I'm able to do the job I do now. If I wasn't fast or quick with my ability to put thoughts into sentences, I'd be toast. That's just how it went. And that's, I was very lucky to get into Clark. It was, I was not academically there, but I put on I'm good in a room, put me in a room with somebody. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to turn on a little, whatever charm I have left, probably not much at this point, but I'm going to do my best to give you what I can and show you what I can do. And luckily enough, the admissions guy took me in.
That's awesome. Yeah, thinking about it, like you're just kind of describing the writing process, the academic rigor as an English major, reading, right? Lots of words, right? Talk about what flow state means to you as it relates to that in writing, and then we'll talk about athletically.
Okay, so I call it flashing. I would get I've been getting these since I was younger. I would get like flashes of, once I learned how to type, this was easier. It was very hard writing because I have chicken scratch writing. You can't read anything I'm writing. Even me, sometimes like I'll take notes on guys now for my job and I'm like, what does that say? All right. But once I was able to get my typing in line, I would write paragraph at a time and it would come quick, right? And then I would kind of struggle for my real struggle as a writer is finding the transition that works, because I will overwrite everything because I don't know the transition. So I'll throw a couple extra sentences in there and be like, all right, it's going to come to me. And when it doesn't, I just stop. And now I know this. This used to really frustrate me because I couldn't do it when I was younger. Now I take a step back and I look at it and I go, okay, what makes the most sense? What do we have to talk about next? Right. And then I would go, those sentences are terrible. And I would delete them and then I'll have my transition. But the transition in between the flashes was where I struggled. And that, that started to come as time came and I started adopting the outline um, philosophy of writing, which is kind of, you plan it out before. So we're doing this on a Monday. Today is my outline day where I'm going to outline not only the articles I'm going to write, but the way I'm going to break them up. And I primarily write for web now. So this is a little easier. I can kind of do a lot more bullet pointy stuff and then have it work together very easily. If I'm writing a feature, it's like 1,000 words or more. That outline becomes even more important because then I have to have beginning, middle, end, arguments, solutions, those things in there. And sometimes I don't know what those are, but I know the structure of everything I'm going to write. And that is what has helped me. And I think it's funny now that you bring it up, like the way that relates to not playing sports necessarily, but training for me. Because I had some serious injuries, but I just don't stop. I think that's the key to most people that are like, what's the secret? How do I change? It's like, so you do it, you keep doing it. Right. And I actually had players and people ask me this, like, how do I get better at stuff? And a player would ask me that when I was coaching college, player would come and ask me like, coach, how do I get better? I'm like, you need to play. Like, if you think you're just going to get better because you're a little faster, or a little stronger, that's not necessarily going to be the answer. You need to be put in situations where you're challenged in the sport you want. If you don't do that, things get incredibly hard, right? You have to adjust a lot of the time. And what people ask me about writing, they're like, hey, how can I get better at writing? I'm not very good at writing. I'm like, we write something every day. It can be a paragraph, it can be a page, it can be 2 pages, it can be you really work on that email. You make that email perfect.
Mhm.
And people kind of go, that's it. I'm like, yes, I write every single day. And I don't mean text. I don't mean that. I mean, I write something every day. And I've done it for how long have I 21 years? Something like that. Part of that is I get paid for that. A large chunk of that is things I get paid for. But it's also setting up a continual evolution of style, which I've had to have a lot of, especially in the last 10 years. I would say actually 5 years. My style has changed significantly to be more positive and less negative, less picky, less reliant on metaphor, more analytical, and more crisp, I think is the best way I could put it.
Mm. And when you write and you're working on a piece, how do you get yourself into that like flashing mode? What channels you into that zone, so to speak?
That one just so I also have I don't have ADHD, I have regular ADD. And one of the things I do is a mental trick where I'll sit down and I'll say to my brain, I'll go, brain, here's the deal. We're going to do 5 minutes. We're going to do 5 good minutes on this. And then we're going to see where we're at. That's it. That's all I want from you today. For right now, for this hour, we're taking 15. It's just 15 minutes, 45 minutes. You can go do whatever you want. Right. This is me talking to myself. Like, this is my mental exercise. And I inevitably spend as much time as I can keep focused on whatever task that is or whatever thing that is. And usually it ends up being about 45 minutes before my brain's like, hey, man, look, squirrel, like I heard something outside. Let's go outside. Or, hey, remember that thing you wanted to watch earlier? We should watch that now. And it's a struggle, but, and I don't take, I've never been diagnosed but everyone that knows me knows that I'm going to stay like my head's doing this. I'm looking at stuff. It's gotten better. Some people it gets worse when you age. For me, it's gotten better, especially in the last 5, 6 years. Um, the weird thing is, I think COVID re-centralized me in a weird way where I started going outside a lot more and like not having my headphones in and just like chilling out and calming myself down. Cause I think obviously everybody had a very tough time. I'm not saying I had it real bad, but it was, it was tough. It was a tough time for everybody. And I think the way I handled it was something I hadn't done before since I was a kid, which is I was a kid that played in the woods. I'm from New Hampshire, man. Put me in the woods with like my imagination and I'm good for like a day. Like that's just, and that's still that little kid is inside of me. The little kid that loves, I always hated practice. I was going to say loves practice. I hate practice. The little kid that loves playing games, like being in the game, getting your number called, getting your play called, knowing that you just made a good play is like the best feeling to me. So I kind of chased that. All the gyms were closed. So I started running and that was really good for me. I'm so bad at running still. I ran yesterday and I was like, oh God, when is this over? Running does not get easier. It just gets less annoying, I think is the way to put it. Right. But I think that kind of set me on a foundation of appreciating things more and being more positive. And then right out of COVID, I started coaching high school again. I hadn't coached high school since I coached my high school while I was at Clark. I would go back and help all the time. Cause I went straight from graduation to coaching college. So now I was given a JV team, the head JV coach and the offensive coordinator at Hopkinton. And, the challenge of redoing an entire offense, the challenge of teaching kids that really, the town is a really good youth program, but they get them basically ready for stuff, right? Whereas our concepts aren't enhanced or advanced or anything crazy, but they're definitely stuff you're not learning at the youth level. We do a lot of carry, switch, fake, pick, slip, stuff like that. We attack from the back, we attack from the front, we attack from the wing. I had a college coach come watch us to see if we could get any players for his team. And he goes, the first thing he said wasn't about the players. He's like, did you do this? I'm like, dude, what? Like, this offense. Is this your offense? I'm like, of course. I've been here for 4 years. He's like, what is this? And I was like, yeah, it's just, what I just said. And he's like, I've seen Hopkinton play before and they're good. They usually out athlete people. You like rip that team apart with like 2 cuts. And I was like, yeah, the one across and the one atop. We go perpendicular and then we go right at you, right? Like we want you to think we're doing this. And then, there's the guy at the back of the cage, That's a strange thing that just happened. Yes. Thanks, Siva. But
They were just fireworks.
yeah, I think as I did this, yeah, that was weird. That's what it was like when I scored goals. And so, yeah, the college coach was like, it's a great offense, man. Like we had a lot of lefties, so I would balance the field one way and then rebalance, and that was fun. Like last year's team was fun. We won the state championship in 2023. Coincidentally, I'm gonna brag on myself. I got assistant coach of the year, so I was very excited. Awesome. I had been in the finals the 2 years previous. We had made the finals in 2022 and lost, which I still think about every day. But like this team going through COVID and then becoming a coach again really changed me. I think it made me better. I think that it made me realize the things I was doing in college were right, but I was delivering the message wrong. We have a no swearing policy. We have we break it sometimes. You have to do push-ups if you do it, right? We have a positivity mandate, right? You come in and you're negative, you get shut down. You go to the end of the bench. and I run the box. And my first year, we had a lot of kids that were like, "What do you do there?" He said, "What's he doing?" And I'm like, "End of the bench." They're like, "I'm starting." I'm like, "No, you're not." And they'd be like, "What?" And they'd look at the head coach and he'd be like, "Do what he says." We had to change. While we had a good culture going in, we had to make it better. You can make anything. That's the real lesson, I think. And also the thing I struggle with writing, which is this new job. I've had this job now for the same 4 years. And where I'm now the managing editor of the entire brand, not just the writer, right? Like I started as the writer, then I was the editor, co-editor. Now I'm the managing editor, right? And I had this talk with a guy. His name's Sean Leahy. He used to run the NFL desk at The Athletic. So this dude has seen some hitters. And one day he pulls me aside. I don't go into the office much, but we're having a meeting. And I was like, I'm really frustrated. I'm really burned out. Like, I don't know what to do. The volume is getting to me. The churn is too much. And he goes, "Not everything has to be great." And I'm like, "Yeah, it does." Like my brain's like, "Yes, it does. I have to do great things most of the time." And he goes, "Kyle, it has to be good. It has to be good enough. Not everything has to set the world on fire, dude. You don't have to have every single sentence be perfect. That's why we have editors. You already write fast. You can write fast." Right? And I'm like, "Oh, I guess." I didn't like it. It was not a talk that but now I give that talk to people. Now I say that to people that are writing for me. I'm like, they're like, "Oh, I don't know about this." I was like, "Dude, it doesn't have to be perfect. I will fix it. Just get it to me on time. If you get it to me late, I'm going to be mad." That's how it works. If it's really terrible, I will literally send it back to you with notes. But most of the time I can fix it. I'm good at that. That's something I can do. That's in my capacity to do. Once I learned the extreme of this and the low of this, and you meet them, I think life gets easier. Is that a little too philosophical?
Not at all. Was it kind of like alleviating pressure on oneself for you?
Yes, but also I just thought that's how you did it. So here's the other part of me doing this job. I was not a newspaper guy. I'm technically, even though I'm older, I'm a new media kid. Like I'm a learn to write reading, Bill Simmons, a first sports writer. I learned to write reading great British journalists for soccer. You know what I mean? Like Barry Glendenning, like guys that know it. He's on a podcast and he's famous in England, but no one would know who that is here. Right. And because of that, I approach things very differently. When I write, I want to do the analysis, and not everything is analytical with what I do. And once I realized that and started, I think too, the flashiness that I used to write with, and then I can still write with, is there. But now I mitigate it because I've realized that a great line is a great line, right? Like I always want to have a great line in a piece, but it's not about me. I'm telling someone else's story. And if I do that poorly, that's on me. That's on me. It's my job to make you look as good as you deserve, right? So that was another thing that happened, right? Like that's another revelation. And it's funny because like I'm 45 and I don't realize any of this until like the journey of writing, the journey of getting better, the journey of continuing to play lacrosse, to coach lacrosse is not 20s, 30s done. It's an evolution of maybe not getting better, but getting more attuned to things. I was very bad at that because I was very headstrong and I was confident and I was like, I will come at you 1,000 miles an hour. And now I'm like, I don't talk as much. I know it doesn't sound like it. You're listening to this podcast. You're like, this dude, shut up. It was worse. It was worse. I would dominate conversations and now I would sit back and I'll let the other person make their point. I'll still go in hard because I don't know how to do it in a way, but it's like how I am on the field. And now I'm not a ball carrier anymore, really. That's how I hurt my knee. I thought I was a ball carrier again. Did my hard dodge to the right, had this guy in my pocket, came back left. My knee was sore before I was and just ripped it apart. You know? Now I went beyond my means. And I was a dodger at Clark. I was a dodger and a shooter all the way through until I was like 35, 36. And then it's like, oh, I can just catch this and put it in the net. And all I have to do is move around a little and annoy this guy. It's great. That's way easier. So I became a perimeter and inside guy, picker, a slipper, all that stuff. And people before were like groaning when I was on their team taking 10 shots. And now they're like, shoot more. And I was like, get me the ball. I'm not going to go get it. You come give it to me. Like, yeah, you have to change the way you play and change your approach. I became a passer. You know what I mean? I wasn't blocking the ball. Like that's a huge thing.
I love that linking. It's a few yoga themes are coming up in my mind here. First of all, it's really cool how you're describing this personal evolution in sport and in your professional craft, writing in this case, like how these shifts and growth happen simultaneously. You're embodying the scholar athlete in your professional and coaching journey, I would say, and athletic even. And I love it. Like, now you're finding spaces to shoot in a way that you maybe didn't even see as a younger player.
Oh, definitely did not see it. I was like, give me the ball. Get out of my way. What are you doing? I don't want your pick. I remember being in a game at Clark and like one of my really best friends, his name was Tex, came up and set a pick for me. I'm like, get away from me. What are you doing? You're bringing your defender, like screaming at him while I have the ball. And my coach was like, Kyle, shut up. And I was like, get him out of the way. So he drifts. I go in, I get murdered, but I score. And I got up and I was like, see, get out of the way. And my coach pulled me off and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, he was in the way. And he's like, you can't yell at your teammates the whole game, man. And I was like, then I was a smart ass. I was like, then teach them where to be, dude. Cause they're in the wrong spot all the time. And he's like, all right, you can sit for a quarter. And I was like, all right. And then we scored 0 goals. And I was like, can I go back in now? Like I was a smart ass. Like that's who I was when I was college. Just in college? Yeah. College. I was 22, like I was a smart ass and I think I'm so smart ass, but like, it's much more tempered and I think it is age, but it's also experience. And it's, when I play with adults now, even when I play with kids, my own kids, I will talk the whole game, but it's productive talk. It's guy coming over here, guy coming over here. I'll see the goalie. I'm playing usually left side attack because I'm righty. And I'm the attackman that goes up to the line and then sprints back. So I'm always moving and I will talk to the goalie with my hands. So I'll be like this if I'm open. If I'm not open, which I'm not most of the time because guys know I do this now, I'll scan the field and the goalie will look up the field and I'll be in his field of vision. I'll be like this way. There's a guy coming out of the box. Like I don't yell it. I just do this or drop it here, like here's the run right here. And then I get out of the way. I'm not the attackman that's like, give me this so I can handle and settle. I'll direct. And I think that's the coaching in me too, but it's also the want to make everything easier. And I think that's the thing I've learned is like, don't make things harder for people.
Yeah.
Like if you can make something easier for someone, that's a gift that most people don't realize they can give. And I know it's kind of preachy or whatever, but man, it's true. I had a kid on my team. He's going to the army, but he's going to like West Point Army. He got in. It's kind of unheard of for a kid from a small town to get into West Point.
That's awesome.
He sends me a DM. I couldn't make his West Point party. I was away. And he's like, Coach, I just want to thank you for, and Coach Blue, who's Deacon Blue's the guy I coached with at Hobbiton. He's like, you know, you guys showed me all this stuff. Like you made me all this stuff. And I was like, dude, we didn't do any of that. Like that was in you the whole time. All we did was like unlock a door so you could walk through it. Like that's not, I don't take credit for that. I really don't. And I said that to him, you know, not to his face, but he was just like, I could feel his emotion like through it. And he was like, thank you so much. Like, I was like, also keep your head down. Don't be a troublemaker at West Point. Okay. Please. Like, do your best. You know, and he's a great kid. I love that kid to death. I love all my kids. And that's, you know, I cry at the end of every season, whether we win or we lose, you know, I'm like an emotional dude, you know,
Yeah,
like
it's emotional for sure.
just who I am. Like it's not going to change. And once I accept, you know, cause I used to hate it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I do this? I'm so annoyed. I'm annoyed by it, but it's like, hey, this is me. This is what I'm going to do. It's, you know, I tell the kids that, you know, I cried for their parents. We do like a thing at the end of the year and I get up there. The head coach does not like talking. So he's like, go talk. I'm like, all right. I always say, you know, nice, whatever. I recall everything from the season and inevitably I'll get choked up. I'll remember a story and I'll stop. I'll try to talk again and I can't. I'm just choked up and I can't do it. Or I'll feel a tear come down. I'll be like, damn it. You know, like I did it again.
There's so much that happens in each season's journey, right? But every kid in the program experiences growth. Every kid experiences challenge and some degree of success too, to varying levels. It's like, it's powerful to see that as a coach, right? And to experience it with them. I'm curious though, how would you, with your coaching and life wisdom now, coach yourself in college? If you could say, you know, 2 or 3 coaching points to your college self, what would coach you?
I would coach me the way I coach now. And I'm very proud to say that, right? I'm very proud that I know that would work with me. And that is, so I'll give you an example. So this summer I went to Lake Placid and I was supposed to be an assistant coach for this team. And I had 3 of my Hop League kids on it. And then I ended up, after one game, the head coach was like, oh, you should be coaching this team. And I took that. I was like, oh no, you know, I don't know any of these kids. He's like, it doesn't matter. You got way more of a handle on this than I do. So he gave me the team. And in that second game, so we had a videographer taking some clips and there's the huddle. And then there's me talking to the LSM. The play before this timeout, the LSM for the 3rd time in the game had brought the ball all the way down and was dodging in the left corner instead of dumping it to an attackman and cutting. And you see me on the video, I'm in the corner of the video and I'm like, hey, please, next time I don't want you to just pass it and get off. If you want to stay on, you stay on, you pass it and you cut, or you dodge the first guy and you go to the net. Okay. And if someone slides to you, you pass, and not, you rip that ball. We're going to have someone behind. That's what we're going to do. And you see the kid kind of go like, no one's ever coached him like that before. And he kind of was like, really? I was like, dude, I want you to play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. That's what makes us, that's what's going to get us to the next level, right? And you see him being confused and me smiling and then me tapping him on the face mask 3 times. And I'm, okay. and then me going back to the huddle. That's how I want to be coached. I don't want to be coached like, what are you doing? That was stupid. You're this, you're that. I want to be coached in the moment, exactly what to do in a way that does not violate my space or or question my intentions or, um, not provide room for discussion. And my whole life, I was coached that way. And one of the things I say to my kids all the time is like, I do this so you don't have to go through what I went through. That's why I do this. Like, this is why I coach this way now. And I didn't coach this way at all in college. When I coached college for 12 years. I was tough. I was mean. You're doing it my way or you're not doing it. And that, looking back now, I don't like saying this, but it's true. I regret how I acted as a coach most of the time. And a lot of it was I was hurt that we weren't winning. I was hurt that my philosophies weren't right. I was hurt and I was projecting, right? Which you don't learn until you go to therapy. Every man should go to therapy, FYI. I know you probably weren't expecting to hear that from the lacrosse writer, but it's true. And I think what I learned there was, I got tools to deal with a lot of stuff. And once I dealt with it and I made my peace with going back and being a coach, that made me a better coach. So the thing I would do the most is, positive reinforcement and also instruction. And if I got that from my coaches, I would have been so much better. I know that. I know that because of what I went through as a player after that. Because I got better after college. I got way better. People wanted me on teams. I was getting calls like, hey, are you, it's funny. They're like, are you the dude with the calves? Because I have massive calves. So like, oh, you're the dude with the
I
calves.
remember.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. Hey, I'm looking for a shooter. Can you play? Most of the time it's like, can you play midfield? And I was like, no, let me play attack. Now I just like playing. Once I'm able to play again, I'm recovering from a ACL. I'm about 11 and a half months out from the surgery and, I'm sprinting and I'm running and it's great, but I just want to play. And my PT won't clear me because she knows me. She knows what I'll do, which is hurt it again because I only have one speed. So I have to get to that speed and I'm not there yet. Right. And I know that. Been a journey. But that's kind of the way I would look at it. Right. Yeah. That's what I would want. And hopefully that's what I'm doing. And I thought it was just a Hopkinton thing. And then I did this kind of guest appearance in Placid and we lost our first few games to the runner, the semifinalist and the champion. Mm. And then we played two teams we destroyed with our offense. And then we got a rematch with the team that beat us in the first game and we reversed the score. And it was heated. And it was all kids from Long Island and New Jersey. And I loved it because we did it with Mass kids, New Hampshire kids from small towns. Like, I was like, yeah, that's what's up. I loved it. I really did. I was like, yes, it's in the rain. It was dramatic. Oh, it was fun. It's a good time. And it reinforced a lot of the stuff that I do. And I've done other stuff, clinics, done some club teamwork, but not a lot. And I just feel good about it. I feel really good as a coach now. Whereas before I was like, coach today. No one listens, like that kind of thing.
Right.
I don't
it sounds like you made a major kind of transformation in your approach.
For sure. Yes. I had to. I wouldn't have, I could have gone to a couple schools. My resume for coaching is in this area is one of the best in that area. I'm not saying it's one of the best in New England. I'm saying central New Hampshire, this tiny little pocket, there isn't that many people that have a better resume than me, that are head coaches, assistant coaches, whatever. So could have gone back to college. That would have been weird with my job. Coaching in a small school that I grew up 1 mile away from, perfect. And it's worked out really well.
really well. Yeah. Who are some of your mm, greatest coaching mentors, and what were some things you learned from these folks?
Okay. I People get mad because I mention him in every interview when someone asks a question like this, and I think he loves it a little too much. Jerry Byrne, who was now the coach at Harvard, man, he taught me to be meticulous with the things that matter. And I was not. I coached him at St. A's when he was at St. A's before he went to Notre Dame. I was not ready for that, and I think I still didn't apply it correctly until I got to Hopkinton, where running the box matters, where you're supposed to be on a play matters, what you're supposed to do for your teammates matters, and if you don't do those things, you're not a good player, right? So that's what I learned from him is the meticulousness of how things are set up, how they're supposed to work, and what you can do to make them work better. So that's number one with a bullet. GB taught me how to be meticulous, and I wasn't meticulous. Number two, I think, ironically, so I coached at Emerson for 2 years, and me and Mike Blanchard really changed that program. We brought it back from almost like a not even a real program into a real program now. They're winning games. They're actually in the NUMAC now, which is wild to me. So, which is the conference that Clark is in. So one of the things he said to me once is I corrected something he said in a huddle, and the kids, no reaction. And he kind of pulled me aside, and he never yelled at me until this point. He goes, don't you ever, sorry if I get, can I swear or not?
Absolutely.
I mean, he's like, listen to yourself. Don't you ever fucking do that ever to me again. Don't ever undermine me in front of the kids again. I swear to God. He's like, I will fire you so fast. I was like, I didn't realize that's what I literally, I was like, I didn't realize that was what I was doing. And he kind of softened a little bit. He's like, okay, you know why you don't realize that? And I'm like, no, why? He's like, because you always think you're right and you're not. Okay. It's great sometimes. It'll get you through life in a lot of situations, but not here. He's like, I'm the head coach. There's a hierarchy. And I was like, yes, sir. I never did it again. Ever. Never did it again. And that was a very important lesson for me because I did always think I was right. And now I don't. Now I make concessions daily. Have to do that. I have to remind myself to do it. I have to think about why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for, and that it matters to not. The power in not speaking is real. And I, for most of my life, did not believe that, right? I always wanted to get my ideas across, my thoughts, and sometimes they're not great. So you got to learn. You got to learn to temper the things that you say and do. And then third, I think when I was at Plymouth State, my first job out of college, I coached with this guy, Andrew Brouch, who was very young. I think he was younger than me, and I was 24. So I think he was either 24 or 25, and he was the head coach, and he hired me. He hired a guy who was much older, and then he hired this wild man dude in his 40s that rode a motorcycle and was trying to pick up girls on the side before practice, right? Very different personalities, right?
Yeah.
And he would kind of bring us all in and be like, what do you want to do about this? And we'd all give ideas, and he just took the best one. Mm-hmm. So what I learned from that is the power in delegating, or in always having an opinion is actually good. I believe that. Always having an opinion is good, even if it's bad, right? Like you have something, if someone asks you for your opinion, you should always give it unless you're not informed enough to give them, right? And there were times where I did that, where I was like, I think that's the first place I did that in my life. So imagine going through your whole life and you always have something to say, except, in situations where you're called upon, right? And I remember proposing a man up, And he's like, let's do it. So the other two guys didn't really want to do man up. Let's basically what happened. So we did it and the kids hated it, right? It was a triple cutter man up. It's a lot of work for one shot, right? They hated it. And we're going through it and it's working, but the defense is starting to figure it out. And then the defense made a jump that killed the whole thing. And I went, oh no, that's the adjustment. Crap. But the thing that made me feel great was one of those seniors. We went back to the huddle and the guys they're bitching. They're like, this is never going to work, blah, blah, blah. And then one of the senior kids who didn't even start, he was like a fourth attackman. He like turned around and he's like, we're running plan. We're running coach's play. Do the play. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And we didn't use it a lot, but the times we used it, we scored. And it became like a pocket play. It's like, oh, I got this. It's a play that we used every 3 games, something like that. It wasn't even that great. If I were to diagram it now, I'd laugh at myself because it's so basketball. It's so triple cutter. It's basically 3 guys up top, 1 guy behind, 2 guys high on the wings. All the guys on this side collapse, pick for the guy in the middle. Everyone thinks it's going to the guy in the middle. This guy floats. It's the floater shot. Float. And everyone's sightless. So it's basically the man up everyone uses now, but harder. So I added steps, which is what I do. But like learning from that was being heard was very cool. And being received is better. Being heard is cool. Being received is better. And having someone back you up is the best. It's just the best feeling of like, not that you're right, but that other people will listen. You know, because there was times when I coached and no one listened. And I'm like, there's times now I coach JV kids. They're off chasing butterflies, man. I don't know what you're doing. You're not listening to me. I'll do this thing where I'll stop. And kids will be like, what? And then, you know, like, not me. The other kids will hit him and be like, you know, because I stopped. Power of silence too. You know, those were very powerful things I brought to coaching. It's made me better. It's funny, like I've never really reflected on this much because I hated, again, I was resentful. I am resentful of 12 years spent for almost nothing. No money came from that, man. I'll tell you that. That money's long gone. My money's been gone for 10 years because it was a very small amount. The test of, is this something I want to do? Is this something I'm good at? Is this something I can make a living on? Turns out, yes and no, right? The thing that it does now is it brings fulfillment. When I'm injured and can't play and can't demo stuff, can I still coach? Yeah. Turns out I can. So that's lacrosse writing teaches you so many lessons. It's not a thing that's so singular and throwaway. I get mad when people play, they love the game, and then they never touch a stick. I'm like, what are you doing? You owe it to this game. You owe it. Like, especially here. There's no coaches here. Again, I'm not bragging saying my resume is good. It's no one is going to coach here. And it's hard. And I'm resentful. I'm resentful of that too. Like, give back to the thing that gave you what you have. Give back to the thing that gave you your education. You know what I mean? Give back to the thing that got you into the school you didn't deserve to get into. Because that's the main thing about lacrosse. Now, as I get kids through recruiting, like, I have a kid going to RPI. Would he be going to RPI if he didn't play lacrosse? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And he knows that, and I know that, and RPI knows that, right? Those are the only people that need to know that. And now everyone listening to the podcast knows that. But listen to the same example, right? It helps open the door. And that's what I love in general. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. This game, you know, in so many ways has shaped your life, the evolution of your coaching craft, your writing craft. What keeps it fresh for you? Is it, talk about that sense of fulfillment that you get from coaching and maybe playing too? Like, how are they meaning of lacrosse? for you now?
I actually take it back more to keeping the writing fresh because that's
Mhm.
the hardest part. Playing is just, I used to be nervous and blast music and everything I did in college, I did until I was 40. And now I'm just like, just so happy to be here. Like I did that before I got injured. And if I didn't do that before I got injured, I don't know if I'd play again. If I didn't appreciate what I was doing and enjoy it. I played in a couple pickup leagues and there's one down the road for me. That's the worst pickup league I've ever played in my life. And I will never go back because I was not enjoying it. And I remember sitting down and talking to my girlfriend. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Just playing this pickup league. It should be so good." And it's just a lot of guys that aren't ready to play at this level and reckless guys. And I'm just not, I don't like it. And she's like, she's great. She just goes, "Why are you doing it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just feel like I should." Like a couple of my friends play in it. And she's like, If you don't like it, don't do it. You already go play in these other leagues, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "And those are fun, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but they're like an hour away." And she's like, "So go do the thing you like to do, right? Don't do it because it's easy and convenient,
Yep.
and you don't enjoy it." So I think for that, that's the playing part. But with the writing part, it's occasionally I get an opportunity to really help someone. And the most specific example I can give is this last year, um, Whittier cut their program last year, right? And I know a couple Whittier alums not well. And I wrote a story about them cutting it. And then I think all the alums read it. And then I wrote it for USA Lacrosse Mag. And they put together an effort to bring back the program. And they contacted me and they said, "Can you help us?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll pitch it. Like, I'm not in charge of that publication. I just do freelance." And I pitched it and he's like, "Yeah, do you think you can make something of it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it ended up being the catalyst for now they're going to have a program again. So, like, indirectly, I helped what could be hundreds of kids play lacrosse. And I thought about that and they emailed me, they thanked me, they're great. Like, so appreciative to all those guys. Just honored to have the opportunity. And I think about that when I'm like, "This is boring. I'm sick of doing this. I'm doing too many write-ups on kids. I'm not doing enough creative stuff. I'm not doing enough with my newsletter. Like, I need to do more." And then I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to do that." And that's really the reason why I do what I do. It's not this other stuff. This other stuff is great. It's a job. It's a great job. I'm not complaining, but it's not. I think a lot of people want to be recognized and remembered for stuff they've done. Um,
Meaning,
right.
purpose.
They want to have the purpose. They want people to know. For me, I know. And that wasn't good enough for a long time. That's, ego fuels the writing, to a certain point. And now, like, I know that. And that's enough, right? Like, I'm telling the story on the podcast so more people know. But for me, like, if I am really feeling bad, I can go, "Well, you did that. I mean, what if you get to do that again?" That's kind of, I tell my kids that too. Like, there's we got beat in last second goal this year against a team who went to the semifinals, just like us. They played in the other bracket. And the defender who got scored on was guarding a monster. Kid's like 6'8", 260 pounds, monster. And he did a great job on him for most of the day. But then he switched onto him again for the last shot. And the kid kind of took him down hard, came back, wheeled, and the ball just went into the corner. Just one of these last second times running down and it went in. And he's a great kid. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's so dedicated. And I see him on the bench after the game. He's got his head in his hands. and everyone's kind of upset we lost, but I went and I sit down him, I put my arm around him, and he's like, "Coach, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it right now." I was like, "Well, tough, because you're going to hear it. Okay. Games are not won and lost on one shot. It's the whole game. You did your best the whole game, including the last 6 seconds. Okay. You did that. I know that. Even if they don't know that right now, they'll realize it later. Okay. Games are not won and lost in the last second. They're played the whole time. And you played your ass off today. So you have nothing to be ashamed of. I don't want to see you hanging your head when you leave this field. You know?" And he gets up and he's like, "Thanks, coach." And then I think other people heard me say that to him, other kids on the bench. And they were like, "We do like fist bumps. Thank you, coach." I not because of me. They just do that. Because that's how they're raised, which is correct, by the way. Should thank your coaches because they're getting paid nothing. Um, Fist bumps, and they're just like, "Coach, that was good." And I was like, "Yep. Next time. We'll play him again next time." We didn't, but it was great. It's one of those things where like you get to see the impact immediately. And that's rare too, where you see it right away. A lot of stuff you see it later, and that's okay too. That's the rewards of coaching are so vast and so misunderstood by so many people. And I'm going to talk to parents directly here. If your coach cares about your kids, you should never, ever step out of line with him. That's the thing. He can be a bad coach. That's fine. But if he cares about the kids, that's the thing you should worry about. Coaches that don't care about kids should get the treatment that they currently get. I believe that. I do. But if your coach cares about your kids and maybe he's not equipped or whatever, support him because he needs it. He doesn't want it from you too. All those coaches that are starting out, that prevents coaches from coaching. It prevents people from getting into it. It prevents people from getting into the sport when you act, like you deserve something as a parent. Because the thing you deserve is the coach that cares about your kid. I pulled our goalie out of the championship game. We were the semifinal game. We were losing. We were going to lose the game. It's a whole quarter left. The head coach was furious with me for doing this, but I had to do it because he had a knee injury and he couldn't walk. Like he could stand in the net and make saves. The one's going to win us the game. So I made the decision to walk out and almost like carry him back to the sideline. And everyone knew that meant we're going to lose. And I was like, I don't care. You come first. We are going to lose this game, whether you're in the net or not. I'm not going to risk you getting hurt more. I'm not going to have that. I said that to his face. I'm like, here with the goalie. I'm like, I am never going to do that. So we're going to go sit down and it's going to be really hard, but we're going to do it together. Right. And I'm getting choked up now. I think about that a lot. Because no one would have done that for me. Sorry, Clark coaches. You wouldn't have done it either. I know that I care about the kids and the parents know I care about the kids because I hear all my friends coach and they're like, God, it'd be so great if it wasn't for the parents. I'm like, then you have bad parents. Your parents don't respect you. One of those two things is true. And it could be both. And that's really bad because that means you're not going to be there very long. And I'm like, if that's the case, you need to have a talk with all that. We do it before the season starts. We're like, here's the deal. If you play JV, everyone plays. If you play varsity, not everyone plays. Those are the expectations. And we don't promise playing time or starting spots to anyone. Just because you started last year means nothing.
Yeah. I think a couple of themes that I want to just highlight there. I love these anecdotes and the purpose in coaching emphasis. It's caring for the kids.
Yeah.
I think there's two ways to look at things. One is the positive mindset. Everybody's doing their best. And that applies to the coaches too, like you said. The other one is they're not, something's wrong. There's a deficit. They're lazy. They're not good enough. Um, it's kind of like, how do we choose to see the world? How do we choose to approach life? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm. I love that. I mean, if the coach isn't resourced, like, support them. I love that you're bringing these themes up. It's very important. Um, we're getting close to the time. I want to go back to something you brought up earlier that I really appreciated, and that was your experience in therapy. What would you say to a younger athlete or a younger uh, girl or boy, man or woman? The decision to begin that process, like, what turned the wheel for you, and maybe how might you encourage somebody who's thinking, I might want to explore this and see what I can learn about myself.
For the person that's thinking about exploring it, I would say one thing. I would say, have you ever wondered why you are the way you are? Have you ever wondered that? Because I used to think, there's something wrong with me, and it wasn't me. It's the way I saw things, right? And that's what unlocks you, I think. That's what therapy unlocks for you is if you buy in. And honestly, it took me a while to buy in, right? Uh, I'm stubborn. I'm hard headed. And I think, I went twice. Both were kind of times of crisis for me. Um, Not like horrible, like everyday stuff. Then I was like, I can't handle this right now. Like, I need to talk to somebody who is not biased against me as a person. And then I did that and I was like, oh, so it's like, okay. I think the
Mm.
thing it teaches you is like, these feelings are okay.
Yeah.
Feeling feelings is okay. And I think, a lot of people from, you know, elder millennial, Gen X, regular millennial, younger millennial, I don't think they know that. I think that's your connection to that varies from generation to, your family upbringing, things like that. I I think for me, I would say if you're considering it, give it a shot. I can't guarantee you that every therapy is going to be great therapy, but a therapist that will take the time to try and understand you and then have you re-examine the things that you're upset about in a different way is priceless. I do. I think there's no substitute for that. Having a good support system is great. Like I have great friends all the way through college, after college. Um, and to this day, I'm still friends with like guys from high school, a couple guys from college. A lot of it fell off. Kids changed a lot of stuff. I'm kind of like a stepdad now. I'm not married, but I've been with my girlfriend for a while. Her son is 9. I've known him since he was 6. So I'm
Mm.
just doing my best, like, and he's just a great kid, like seeing the things that I tell him and try to support him like that. I never thought I could do that. I was like terrified of that, right? I was terrified of taking that responsibility. And what therapy did was like, you can, it's funny. I always thought this with writing. I would always say if I had a deadline, I'd always be like, hey, remember that time you did this in this amount of time? You can do anything, right?
Mm.
Like I had this little voice in my brain. It's like, dude, you can do it. You can do it. Like, shut up and do it, right? I'm very lucky that I had that. I did not have that for other aspects of my life until therapy. The therapy will get that little guy in the back and he'll start going on everything now, and he'll rein you in too. Like I think that's the thing that is the most valuable piece is like having that conversation with yourself and finding out where you fit And how you perceive yourself is so much more important than how other people perceive you. And you will get that. You will get that if you really lock in, and it might take years. I'm sorry to say that, but you will get that. That's what it'll give you. And I think that's the thing I would tell people, because I think a lot of kids, a lot of younger athletes, they're measured by what they post on Instagram. They're measured by their stats. They're measured by their parents' approval. You have to be good with you.
Yeah.
You have to be good with you.
Well,
and who you are, right? And your decisions you make. And therapy will help you get there. I believe that.
well,
Yeah.
This has been great, Kyle. Is there anything else you want to highlight, or things you're working on that you're excited about?
I'm working on getting back to playing lacrosse. I'm very excited about it. I'm squatting. I hit this sounds so lame. I hit 155 for reps. I was pumped. I had this giant knee brace on in the gym. Guy comes up to me, starts talking to me. He's a boxer. He has a meniscus tear, and he's like, "Yo, man, start walking backwards." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." Now it's my finisher. It's my finisher, and my legs feel amazing. My knee feels amazing. I'm on a backwards treadmill, powering it myself. 5 minutes, end of every workout. It's helping a lot. I'm going to do it every time now. It's just one of those things. I just got to get stronger. And I was shooting before I was supposed to be shooting, so didn't lose my touch. Still got my hands a little bit. And I was going to play in this Masters thing that's coming up, the box Masters in Utica. I can't. I have to send the email today that I can't play. So that's sad, but I'm going to play next time. I'm going to play all summer, and it's going to be great, and be happy. And I'm going to be appreciative, and I'm going to pass the ball. Those are the things I'm going to say to myself. We're going to pass the ball today. That's what we're going to do. We're going to create, right?
Yeah.
It's very cool. That's what I'm really excited about. I would say if you enjoy the podcast, and maybe you're a lacrosse person or not a lacrosse person, I have a newsletter called Lacrossity, lacrossity.substack.com. It's free. You can throw me some shekels if you wish. I will take them. I am, again, living in a 1-bedroom apartment. See all these sticks? These were free. Okay. I was the Gear Lifestyle editor. Been to lacrosse for like 6 years. I don't pay for these. But I pay for everything else. So please help me. And yeah, I would check that out. And, you can check me out on Twitter at the Kyle Devitte, also on Instagram if you want. And thanks for listening. And, if your kid's thinking about playing lacrosse, just have them play lacrosse. It's fun. I don't know anyone that's played it and disliked it. Facts.
Great game. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kyle. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. You can learn more about my work as a yoga therapist at flowstateyogatherapy.com or on social media at flowstateyogatherapy. You can also email me at flowstateyogatherapy@gmail.com. I look forward to connecting with you all. I hope you find an interesting nugget in this episode. I hope you share this with a friend, and I hope you reach out to me with feedback. It is valuable. Thank you again, and enjoy the journey.